Biology is the scientific study of life. It is a natural science with a broad scope but has several unifying themes that tie it together as a single coherent field. Man, Wikipedia makes really complicated definitions for these things. While it made more sense than the physics one, it is still quite confusing. But let's explore these themes that Wikipedia talks about. The word comes from bio, meaning life, and ology, meaning study of, so biology is quite literally the study of life. Life is a very general term though, as it encompasses all the complex processes that keep different living things functioning, including us. In biology terms, living things are formally known as organisms. Unlike physics, which tells us the fundamental forces of the universe, biology focuses on how these forces actually work within organisms. Think of biology as the youngest of its two science siblings, since it is just applied chemistry and physics. Today, we'll only cover a small handful of topics. We'll talk about cells and some organelles, respiration, lipids and proteins, enzymes, and finally, muscles. Let's start by talking about you. Yes, you. More specifically, the cells that make you up. You may hear about cells being the building blocks of life, and that is quite true. They are microscopic factories that make life possible, and I say factories because their structure is very complex despite their size. Cells were first observed by Robert Hooke. He didn't have the technology to see them up close as we can today. Let's take a closer look. There are two types of cells, eukaryotic and prokaryotic. Let's talk about eukaryotic cells. A eukaryotic cell can be split into animal cells and plant cells. A typical animal cell consists of organelles or mini organs like the nucleus, mitochondria, and endoplasmic reticulum, each with a specific function. You may have heard of the mitochondria being famously called the powerhouse of the cell. Well, what does that actually mean? Well, the mitochondria generates energy for the cell to use in the form of a specific molecule known as ATP. ATP is the power that your cell uses to do its job. Now, I won't dive into the chemistry of it all too much, but this happens through a process called respiration. No, not breathing. Respiration is the process that takes place when your cells use up the food you eat to make this ATP molecule. The food you eat contains glucose, which is the molecule that the cell breaks down to make ATP, and most of the ATP is generated in the mitochondria. Now let's go to another organelle, the nucleus. The nucleus is the largest organelle in the cell, and for good reason, as it stores its genetic information in the form of DNA. DNA is very important as it codes for every trait of your body, and to code for that many traits, you need a lot of DNA. In fact, your DNA stretched out would be an astronomical number, and all that fits in our microscopic cells. But to organize the very long strands of DNA into a tiny space, they had to be supercoiled, or compressed a lot of times, to form something called your chromosomes. You have a whopping 23 pairs of chromosomes, and that 23rd pair is the one that decides what gender you are. If you have two X chromosomes, you are a female. If you have an X and Y, you are a male. All this is contained within the nucleus, which is why many consider it as the most important organelle in the cell. To wrap up talking about cells, we'll finish with the cytoplasm. There's not really too much to say about the cytoplasm. You can think of it as the blood of the cell, where it acts as a medium for intercellular reactions. Phew, that was a lot of talk about cells. Now let's talk about lipids and proteins, the biochemical building blocks of life. Lipids, primarily fats and oils, make up the cell membranes and store energy, while proteins made of amino acids perform countless functions like catalyzing reactions and transporting molecules. Let's talk about enzymes. What are enzymes? Well, we first must understand what the word catalyst means. A catalyst is something that speeds up a process. Enzymes are exactly that. They speed up the chemical reactions in your body. Without them, we probably wouldn't even be alive. Enzymes are quite complex as they are made of proteins that are folded in a specific way, and since they are folded in a 3D space, there are countless ways in which the proteins can be shaped, which means there are possibly a countless number of enzymes. This is actually for a good reason though. Each enzyme's specific folding allows it to have something called an active site, where the faster reactions happen. Molecules called substrates bind to this active site to undergo a faster reaction, and since usually only one substrate can bind to a specific enzyme, scientists have named this phenomenon enzyme substrate specificity. Let's look at a process that uses many enzymes: digestion. Lipase is an enzyme that is used in digestion, and it can break down fats into fatty acids. This is a process which may take a much longer time to occur if lipase wasn't present. Now on to muscles. Your ability to move relies on skeletal muscles, and exhausting these muscles are what make you feel weak and regret your life choices at the gym. How does this exhaustion happen? Well, to find out, we first must look at the structure of your muscles first. Your muscles are made up of sarcomeres, which are made up of light and dark band. The light band represents something called actin, and the dark band is something called myosin. When you're lifting lightweight like Ronnie Coleman, that's actually your sarcomeres working. The myosin heads latch onto actin filaments, pulling them in a process called sliding filament theory. All this requires ATP. But here's the problem. Muscles are really greedy for energy. They burn through ATP really fast. When ATP runs low, the myosin, which is the dark band, gets stuck mid-pull. This is what causes muscle fatigue. But do you remember when we talked about respiration? Well, your body panics and switches to anaerobic respiration, which is a process that doesn't require oxygen. However, this produces much less ATP, and it also produces lactic acid. Lactic acid buildup is what gives you that burn you feel in the muscles. Now let's take a quick look at how muscle building actually occurs. I'm sure by now we've all seen the video of the skinless guy demonstrating how muscles are built, but if not, I shall give you a quick overview. When you put your muscles under stress by mechanical tension, the muscles get some very small micro tears. These micro tears happen when you push your muscles to failure. Now you need to recover. These micro tears will fix themselves, but they will be stronger than before, allowing the muscles to lift heavier weights the next time. Now the muscles have a lot more to cover, as they are a very complex structure, but we'll stop talking about them for now before we dive too deep. Now, we asked some students at our school some questions again, but this time it was regarding biology. Let's see what they had to say. Okay, please have your name.
Thomas.
Lila.
I'm Yusuf Peter.
My name's Habiba.
To me, it's like the study of living things, organisms and whatnot, like humans, plants, animals.
Biology in my own terms is the study of life, how everything functions, cells, how reproduction works, the immune system, animals, how they reproduce, synthesis, plants, stuff like that.
In my own terms, biology is a study of the human body, physical appearance, anything related to the body systems or organs.
Biology is like the study of life and all organisms, including humans, every type of like animals, organisms, even on like a cellular level, not just like ones that are just like we can see with our own eyes, but just on a microscopic level too. So what I know about cells is that they can multiply and divide, and like that's through the process of mitosis, meiosis. There's also like two different types of cells. There's like somatic and the germline cells.
And yeah, I think I have a pretty decent background. I know about the organelles and their functions and metabolic processes that involve enzymes and whatnot inside the cell.
Cells are the most basic unit of life. Everything is made up of cells, and cells are very important for function. Like for example, the immune system is made up of many different cells. The brain is made up of many different cells. The nose. They're basically needed for everything to function. Like they exist in every single living organism.
Cells are the smallest unit or the basic unit in a human's body.
I honestly love biology. I have a passion for it.
It's very important. It's one of the most important and effective subjects in any school or in life.
Well, biology is my personal favorite subject, so I kind of biased towards it, and I'd say that I find it very enjoyable and fun, and the more that I learn about it, the more interested I become in it.
I really enjoyed it. Actually, it's my favorite subject because I want to become a doctor. I find it really interesting.
The nervous system. The nervous system is one of the most also important systems in body systems. It shows how the neurons or the brain works. It shows how communication between organs, either hormones or electrochemical signals, these stuff are important, of course.
I find particularly cellular biology most interesting in terms of just how the little organelles function as well. There's something very interesting as well on inheritance and hereditary, and I also find it really interesting to learn about immunology and how the cells and the body react to when bacteria or viruses try to inhabit the body. So those topics are something that are pretty interesting to me.
Well, just any kind of topic in the human body. I'm really fascinated with how the immune system works, how the brain works, how reproduction happens, how a baby grows, how muscle contraction works. For example, the immune system, it has many different ways to protect the body and specific cells to attack specific pathogens. And for example, the digestive system, it has there's acid in the stomach that helps digest food. Reproduction, for example, a fun fact, the minute an egg is fertilized, the chromosomes start to determine the gender of the baby, the eye color, the gender, everything.
Organ systems, specifically the nervous system, I haven't learned it yet in school, but I have basic understanding about it. Involves the spinal cord, axons, the brain and whatnot. That's all I know until now.
Okay, thank you for the interview.